Hello students, in my previous video I explained you from our supplementary book lesson number 5, The Happy Prince. In this lesson I explain you how the Happy Prince was a beautiful statue and he was covered with gold and there is 2 bright sapphires for their eyes and a large red ruby glowed in sword hilt. Now why did he want to part with all the gold and he had and his precious stones? What he do with that? So I explain you that. So today we are doing the textbook questions. Now think about it. Why do the courtiers call the prince the happy prince? Is he really happy? What does he see all around him? So answer of that question is, students, the prince lived in the palace and never came in contact with grief and misery as long as he lived. So all his courtiers called him the happy prince. But when he died, people put his statue on a high pillar. From there he could see the whole of his town. He was grieved to see the miseries and grief of the poor people around him. Their sufferings made him unhappy. He became happy when he helped them by giving all the riches, the ruby, sapphires and golden leaves with which his body was covered. They got rid of their poverty, became healthy and happy. This gave him real contentment and happiness. Now question number 2. Why does the happy prince send a ruby for the seamstress? What does the swallow do in the seamstress house? कि हैप्पी प्रिंस ने रूबी जो थी वो एक सीमस्ट्रेस सिलाई करने वाली औरत को क्यों दी और स्वेलो ने सीमस्ट्रेस के घर जाकर क्या किया? And the answer of that question is, the prince saw the miserable condition of the seamstress through the open window of her house from his high position. She was embroidering a gown in the candlelight. Her hands were red due to the needle pricks. Her sick son was crying and demanding oranges, but she could not afford even his medicine. What to talk of oranges? Now she was tired mentally and physically. The prince felt sad and started crying. Now just then a swallow stopped on his way to Egypt to rest the sleep under the shelter of the statue of Happy Prince. The prince requested the swallow to be his messenger, pluck a ruby from his sword hilt and put it on the table of the seamstress. Now the swallow obeyed through unwillingly. He placed the ruby near the thimble of the seamstress. Wood had fallen asleep due to tiredness. Then the swallow went round the bed of the sick boy. He fanned him with his wings. The boy felt cool and comfortable and went to sleep. The swallow when returned felt happy and warm. Though it was cold outside, he had done a good deed. Question number 3. From whom does the prince send the sapphires and why? Prince ने अपने sapphire किसको भेजे और क्यों? Answer is, the prince had 2 sapphires studded in his eyes. He sent them to help 2 needy persons. The first sapphire he sent through the swallow to a playwright who could not complete his play due to hunger and cold. It enabled him to buy food and firewood and complete writing his play. Second sapphire he sent to a match girl who had let her matchboxes fall into a gutter. They were spoilt and could not be sold. She cried for his father would beat her if she went home without any money. When she got the sapphire, she stopped crying and ran home happily. The prince thus wiped her tears and saved her from being beaten. Question number 4. What does the swallow see when it flies over the city? जब swallow city के ऊपर उड़ रहा था तब उसने क्या देखा? क्या देखता है? Answer is, he saw the rich making merry and poor beggars sitting at the gates. He flew to the dark lanes and saw the white faces of the starving children looking restlessly at the dark streets. Under the archway of the bridge, two little boys were laying in each other's arm, trying to keep themselves warm. They were hungry. Just then a watchman told them to get away from there, and they wandered in the rain, cold and hungry. Question number 5th. Why did the swallow not leave the prince and go to Egypt? Answer. The happy prince had given both his eyes, which were made of sapphire, to help two needy persons. He had become blind and helpless. He was no more able to see the misery and suffering of his people and help them out. The kind, sympathetic and loving swallow realized the helplessness of the prince. He decided not to go to Egypt and stay with the prince and help him in his cause of removing the misery of his people. Question number 6. What are the precious things mentioned in the story? Why are they precious? The precious things mentioned in the story are the leaden heart of the prince and the dead bird. They are precious because they symbolize heavenly virtues like goodness, sympathy, love, selfless service and sacrifice to make others happy. So students, these are the answers of your lesson number 5. So you have to write it in your fair notebook.